And the cool thing is I can cut off from the beginning. So like I can get rid of this part. So, okay, let's try this again, people. Okay, so I heard that y'all have been learning about the American Revolutionary War, right?
Yes.
Okay, did I get that? I got that right. And there's a really important person that played a really large role in the American Revolutionary War, and that is King George III. Does anybody know anything about King George III?
He's a British king.
He's a British king who collected taxes. Nailed it, right on the dot. So, I know that y'all knew it too over here. So he's a British king who collected the taxes, and he did not live in America. So I have a really cool video that I want to show y'all to kind of get you thinking about the American Revolutionary War, and it's a really humorous video, and I think that y'all will really like it. So let's see if it'll work. Let me turn the lights off first.
Hey there, colonists, my name is King George. Will you give me money, pay the debt for the war? Hey there, colonists, my name is King George. Will you give me money, pay the debt for the war? No taxation without representation. Don't take my money if I don't have a say. No taxation without representation. Don't take my money if I don't have a say. Hey there, colonists, my name is King George. Without representation. Don't take my money if I don't have a say. No taxation without representation. Don't take my money if I don't have a say.
That's kind of good.
Did y'all like that?
Yes.
I know it's been stuck in my head all day because I listened to it a couple times, and hopefully that'll get you thinking about the phrase taxation without representation. Raise your hand if you've heard that before. You've heard that phrase, so y'all are a little bit familiar. Okay, so I wanted y'all to know kind of where we are on the timeline of the history of the American Revolutionary War. And so, let's see. Here we go. So the French and Indian War was kind of the first part of this timeline, and it's also known as the 7 Years' War. Are y'all a little bit familiar with that and what happened? Do you have a question, or you're familiar? Okay, cool. So then the Proclamation of 1763, which is when King George told the colonists that no one was allowed to move west, and then the Stamp Act. So this is where King George really started to tax the American colonists and started to really force them to pay these taxes. And so that's kind of where we are, this little block right before the town shed, and that's when he started to tax so that more money could go to the Parliament, which is the government, the British government, so that they would remain loyal to Britain. And so that's kind of where we are. And then you keep on going, the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party, which I know that y'all have learned about as well. And so this is kind of where we are right now. And so I really, I wanted y'all to see where we are. So I know that y'all have learned a little bit about taxation without representation. Can anyone tell me what a tax is?
Being off
You forgot? It's okay. Anybody else? Yeah, so you buy a good, and then more money is being added to it, and that is money that's demanded by the government. And so say when you buy this marker, and there's a certain amount of money that you have to pay when you purchase this marker, that particular money goes to the government. And so when King George was taxing them, for example, like the Stamp Act, a certain amount of money would have to go back to Britain, okay? And so I have a really cool activity that I think it's going to help me explain how this went down. So, you know how we drew cards earlier? If you happen to draw a card with the name King on it, could you come up to the front? Jaden, right? All right. So Jaden, I'm going to give you this, and you get to wear this really cool sign that says you are the king. Here you go. And you get to sit, let's see, let's have you over here. You get to sit at the front of the class. In a chair, I know. Okay, so raise your hand if you got the tax collector's cards. All right, come see. You get to wear a really cool badge that says tax collector, and then Ashley, you get to stand up with them too.
Guards?
Okay, so, no, not guards. They're actually members of Parliament, which means that they are part of the British government. So the rest of y'all get to be colonists. So a little bit of review. The king is the person who's in charge. That would be Jaden, and he gets to decide when and where and how to tax people. And so today, the tax money is the M&Ms that's in the cup in front of you, but don't touch them just yet. We're going to wait a little bit. And so the tax collectors are supporters of the king, and they get to collect the taxes, or in this case, the M&Ms. And then the rest of you are the lucky American colonists who get taxed. So if these things are true, then you have to give the tax money to the tax collectors, okay? So let's see. Here, if you want this cup here. Okay, so the king is going to read one tax, and then Ashley, you're going to collect from this side of the room, and then remind me your name? Tax. Logan, you're going to collect on this side of the room, okay? So we're just going to do one at a time.
If you have a brother, you owe 2 candy pieces.
Okay, so if you have a brother, you have to give the tax collector 2 candy pieces, okay?
How many?
2 2 M&Ms.
2 cousins count.
And then here's your plate.
Yeah. I'll tag Jimmy. Yeah. This is my favorite. Right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's everybody.
Wait, I can hear you.
Just about everybody in the class.
If you have ties on shoes, then I'll just take them off. Take off the shoes. Guys, everybody's gonna own the last one.
All right, has everybody given M&Ms if you have a brother? Okay, so now that the tax collectors are done collecting for that tax, they give it to the king. Okay, so if you would dump all the M&Ms on the king's plate.
Here you go, my king.
Okay, so we have another tax. King, would you want to read it out loud?
Jaden knows what to do.
You want to do that one?
He has a brother.
If you have blue eyes, you owe 1 candy.
Okay.
Just put contacts on. Put contacts.
Contact will.
How many do you have?
If it's blue eyes, you have 1 candy piece.
Get ready for the next one.
Everybody's gonna owe. I'll take off my shoes. I'm gonna take off my license right now. Cece, you're gonna have to owe the next one. Cece, everybody's gonna owe.
They're pretty blue.
It's blue and green.
All right. If you have blue eyes, did you give the M&Ms? Hey, class.
I got blue eyes. I got blue
Class.
Yes.
Can I I have your attention, please? Did everybody give an M&M if you have blue eyes? Okay. So, again, the tax collectors are giving the king his plate of M&Ms. Does everybody see this?
I can't see.
Here. Okay, so he has a couple. But we have another tax.
If you have ties on your shoes, you owe 4 candy pieces.
I have no shoes.
Do I get to keep all these?
You'll see.
4.
Yeah.
4.
What's the one under?
We're just going to do this one.
We already did. Which one's
Did y'all give it to him? Uh-huh. You have laces. So sorry. Did you have to give him?
Jaden, are you going to eat those?
All right. So has everybody given the M&Ms?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to dump it out onto the king's plate. Logan's coming. You'll get to see. All right. Almost done. It's unfair.
This is all of our M&Ms.
Take the rest. Give me They see me.
That's like really
Last one, Jaden.
All right. Hey, guys. So it looks like Logan is done collecting. Wow, that looks like a lot of M&Ms. So if you would give your taxes to the king. Okay, so I have some more bad news. Do y'all want to hear it? We still have one final tax left.
No one has it. I don't think anyone has it though.
But you can still read it.
If your hair is tied up, you owe 1 piece.
Does anyone?
We didn't take our hair down.
Okay, well, if that doesn't apply, then we don't have to give one M&M. So it looks like all the taxes are done. Okay, so did everybody, hey class, did everybody get a good look at the M&M plate of the king? Here, I'll show you. It's a lot of M&Ms. It's a lot of M&Ms. So here's what's going to happen next, okay? Because, are y'all listening? Because the tax collectors are members of Parliament, they each get 10 pieces of candy each for doing their job. So King, if you would give the tax collectors 10 pieces each. Now usually they would get 10% each, but we don't really have time to figure out what 10% of that is. So to represent it, we're just going to give them 10 pieces each. Raise your hand if you have like 3 pieces left.
I have 4.
Raise your hand if you have 6. Anybody have 6?
I have
5? 4? Okay. Perfect. So King, if you would give me these, that would be great. All right, everybody can go sit down. Thank you so much. Can we clap for our tax collectors and King? Thank you. All right, so now that we have seen kind of a cool representation, hey guys, can I have your attention? Now that we've seen a really great representation, I have some questions that I want you to discuss at your table, okay? Let's see. See if this will work. And go next. Okay, here we go. So at your tables, and I don't want it to get super, super loud, I want y'all to talk about these things. What was so unfair about how the class was taxed? Don't answer it just yet, but I want you to talk to your neighbors about it. And how could it have been handled more fairly? And why were the British goods boycotted? And that means, why did they refuse to buy certain goods? And what methods and organizations were devised by the colonists in order to resist or avoid these laws? So I want y'all to take a couple minutes and talk to the people at your table and see if you can come up with some answers. And then we're going to talk about it as a class.
He was a kid, he was a tax collector.
You what?
Yeah, but I won't.
Talk about it. What do y'all think?
It was so good because a lot of it's PE, so a lot of everybody have shoes like and many people have I don't. They would. I only have shoelaces.
All right, hey guys. Did everybody have enough time to, don't need more time? Everybody have enough time? All right, so what did y'all think about how the class was taxed? Why was it so unfair?
Because we're paying up for things that we were born with.
Okay, you're paying for things that you were born with. Did you have your hand raised? Right here in the back.
Oh, it was unfair because the tax collectors didn't have to pay anything to the king and they still got paid.
Right, the tax collectors got paid more.
It was way too expensive.
It was way too expensive, right? What about here in the back?
It was unfair because they pretty much every single time that they would go out and get taxed, they pretty much get paid 10% of what they brought in.
Right.
So they'd be like almost as rich as the king.
Yeah, so the tax collectors were getting paid, and that was unfair. Wait, sorry, can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
We couldn't live without money because we couldn't buy stuff.
Yeah, you can't live without buying some of these goods. Okay, those are really good answers. I totally agree with y'all. How do y'all think it could have been handled more fairly?
They could have taxed less and maybe not so much.
Yeah, they totally could have taxed less. I like the way that you said that. Right here? Oh, you're scratching your eye.
They could have paid too.
Yeah, they could have paid too. That's definitely an option. Do you have your hand raised? Hey guys, will y'all listen?
If they're taxing Britain the same, but I mean, we are trying to start a country, and England is just making it harder and harder to start a country because we don't have very much money to pay for our houses.
Right, right. So they're taking away a lot of money. Hey guys, can y'all put your cups maybe in the middle of the table and just kind of leave them alone? That would be awesome. Thank y'all.
He could have given us like 10% like the other, like the taxers.
Y'all could have been paid 10% too. Yeah. Or 5%. That could have been really good. Okay, so do y'all know why British goods were boycotted? So why did they refuse to buy them?
The British goods, the colonists didn't want to buy them because they knew they'd have to be paid more.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So they didn't buy them because they didn't want to have to pay the taxes. So they started to refuse to buy them. Does anybody have anything else to add?
Well, because the only reason whenever, I'm trying to add on what you said, they wouldn't buy them, because the only reason why, like maybe the British were taxing them was so taxing the overland more, and they would have to pay people to drive the ship and stay on the ship.
Right.
So that's why
It would be a bigger ordeal.
they wouldn't really need to tax it anymore if they combined it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Do y'all remember what kind of methods or organizations were devised by the colonists in order to resist or stop these laws? You forgot? Dumping the tea. Yeah, I know we talked a little bit about the Boston Tea Party. Logan?
Ladies of Liberty.
Ladies of Liberty? No, not your hand. Yeah, okay, so there's a couple of different ways that the colonists were like, you know what, I refuse to do this. I am going to stop because this is getting a little bit ridiculous. So, what was that? After the...
It's hard to find a few people that like
I think so. It was a rough time for sure. So, I want to talk to y'all a little bit more about the phrase taxation without representation. Let's see if I can get this to go next. Okay, so like I said earlier, it was a phrase that was used by the colonists because they were so frustrated by King George and the fact that he was taxing them on these goods that they didn't have to used to pay taxes for. But the thing that was really unfair was that no one was representing the colonists in the British government. So there was no one there during the meetings saying, hey, we agree with these laws that are being taxed, or no, we don't agree with these laws. Raise your hand if you've heard of like the House of Representatives or a government representative. Maybe a couple of you. So there are people in government that represent a group of people. So say that I am representing y'all as a class. Maybe I would go and talk to the king and say, hey, you know what, I don't agree with these laws. I don't agree with the way that y'all are taxing these people, and so that's not okay. So the colonists were saying, this is illegal. This is not fair that someone is not representing us in Britain. Does that make sense? So do y'all think that there were any correlations between the activity we did and maybe this situation? A lot of riots. Did anyone see anyone get really upset when they had to pay those 4 M&Ms? I know that I did. So I think that there was a lot of connections between how the colonists felt when they had to pay their taxes and when they had to give their money to King George. How did y'all feel when you saw King George's plate of M&Ms?
Frustrated.
Can you raise your hand for me? I want to hear from different people.
Frustrated.
Frustrated?
Jealous.
Jealous?
I felt like stealing it.
You feel like stealing it?
Mad.
You were really mad?
Yeah, I have a new job. I'm a thief.
Honestly, oh, do you have one too? Annoyed, yeah. So this is probably a lot of how the colonists were feeling. They were feeling pretty upset by what King George was asking them to do. And so I want y'all to know that this was a major cause that started the war. And this was a major reason why the American Revolutionary War started. So just to see for my own sake, do y'all think it was unfair for King George to tax the colonists? If you agree with me, I want you to put your thumbs up. If you don't agree with me, I want you to put your thumbs down. So the question is, if it was unfair for King George to tax the colonists, if you agree with that, you put your thumbs up. And if you think it was fair for him to tax, put your thumbs down. All right, just wanted to see. Okay, you can put your hands down, okay? So again, I just want y'all to remember that the reason why taxation without representation was said, it was a phrase or a slogan. Can you raise your hand if you know what the phrase or what the word slogan means? Logan? Something that is written or said, okay? So that's something that the colonists would say, no taxation without representation, because no one was in the government representing the colonists as a whole saying, you know what, I don't agree with these laws, I don't agree with these taxes, and so that's not okay. And so that was not happening, and so it was illegal. So I have, lastly, something for y'all to do, and if I could get 2 volunteers, you and you, to help me pass these out. If you would give one to everybody, I'm going to have y'all do a little writing activity. And hey guys, while they're passing these sheets out, could I have everybody's eyes on me, please? Will someone raise their hand and tell me something that they might have learned from this activity or from this lesson? Logan? Working for a king is fun. You learned a slogan that the colonists used to say, which was?
Taxation without representation.
Good job.
I learned how the colonists felt when they were being taxed.
You learned how the colonists felt were being taxed, which was probably frustrating. Yeah, for sure. Ashley? Can you get one from her? Perfect, thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Ashley, I didn't hear you. It's fun being the tax collector? It's horrible getting taxed? Yeah, I'm sure that's how the colonists felt.
I really want to steal M&Ms.
You really want to steal the M&Ms? Reagan? Thank you so much. What?
It's Jaden.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jaden. I called you Reagan. You love sitting in the chair being the king? Yeah. Anybody else? Hey guys, can y'all listen?
I felt mad that like the tax collector and the king was like they were bragging about it.
Yeah. You felt really angry when they were bragging about it? Okay, 2 more.
What the colonists really felt like, because I mean, we're using candy as our money, and it's like a food tax, but they were using their money to buy food.
Yeah, so that was real money. It was not just candy, for sure. You were really angry? Okay, perfect. Well, I'm glad that y'all got to learn a lot. So one thing that I would love for y'all to do is, I know that y'all just got this sheet in front of you, and I would love if y'all would define the phrase taxation without representation, so the things that we've talked about, and explain why it was important during the American Revolutionary War. And so that's what I just said is on your paper, kind of like a resource for you to use if you need it. And before y'all get started, I want to show y'all something. Let's see if we can press next. That's on the back of your sheet is a little rubric. And so after you get done writing and you feel like you've answered the question, I want you to self-assess yourself. Have y'all ever heard of that, self-assess? Okay, so after y'all have written and you think you've answered it, you're going to look and you're going to see, okay, student has defined the phrase and explained why it was important. If you think that you've done both of these things, you're going to put a check in this box. Okay, this column is for me after I get to read what y'all have written, but when it says self, then y'all get to check here. If you feel like you've defined the phrase, but you didn't really explain why it was important, you get to put a check right here. And if you didn't feel like you defined the phrase or explained why it was important, you get to put a check right here. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? It's just for me to know if y'all understood. And so, yeah, you're getting to grade yourself. But y'all just go ahead and write first, and then after. If you have answered the question and you feel like that you've answered both parts, then you check right here to say that you did it. Does that make sense? Okay, so y'all can go ahead and get started.